Have you ever found yourself sitting quietly in your living room, coffee in hand, wondering when the last time was that your child called, not for something urgent, but just to talk? You think back to the days when the house was full of noise, of kids running around, of laughter, and even a little chaos. Now things are calmer, quieter, and that silence can be peaceful or painfully loud. Maybe it's been days, even weeks, since you heard from your son or daughter. They're busy, you get it. They have work, kids, errands, lives of their own. But still, you can't help but wonder, are they just busy? Or are they waiting for something? Could they be waiting for you? This idea might seem strange at first. After all, you've lived more life, gained more wisdom. Shouldn't they be the ones picking up the phone first? But here's the truth. Age doesn't make you immune to the invisible dance of pride, hesitation, and unspoken emotions that often slip into family dynamics. Sometimes your kids don't call, not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to bridge the gap. They might be waiting, hoping, silently wishing for you to take the first step. And you might be surprised by how often they leave clues, small signs that they miss you, that they want to reconnect, but something's holding them back. Maybe fear, maybe pride, maybe just uncertainty. But if you pay close attention, you'll start to see the signs. And once you do, you can choose to meet them halfway, with warmth, not worry, with grace, not guilt. So today, we're going to talk about those signs. The quiet ways your kids might be telling you, "I miss you," even if the words never leave their lips. It often starts with a shift in tone. Let's say you exchanged a few texts recently. Nothing major, maybe just a quick update or a forwarded article. But the words feel a little softer than usual. There's a hint of warmth, maybe a little humor. It's not just a response, it's an opening. A quiet nudge, like they're testing the waters to see if you'll swim toward them. You can feel it in your gut when someone isn't just replying, they're reaching, even subtly. Or maybe they've started reacting to your Facebook posts again. You shared a photo from your garden, or maybe one of those classic black and white pictures from when they were kids. And there it is, the little heart emoji. A comment that says, "Period. You always had the best tomatoes." It may seem small, but don't overlook it. They saw it. They paused. They chose to engage. That's not nothing. It's a digital version of leaving the porch light on. And you'd be surprised how often these tiny signals are really saying, "I'm still thinking about you." Sometimes it's even more indirect. You hear from your grandson that your daughter asked about your blood pressure at dinner. Or your neighbor says, "I ran into your son last week. He mentioned he missed your cooking." These little things might sound casual, but they're not random. They're emotional breadcrumbs. Your kids might not be saying it out loud, but they're watching. They care. And more importantly, they're still connected to you, even if they don't always show it the way you expect. One of the clearest signs, though, is when they bring up old memories, out of nowhere. Maybe during a short call, your daughter suddenly says, "Remember that summer we drove cross-country in the old station wagon?" You smile and nod, and she chuckles like it was yesterday. That kind of moment isn't just about nostalgia. It's about testing whether the bond you shared is still alive, whether the warmth you once had can still be felt. The same thing can happen when they send you something seemingly out of the blue. A link to a song you used to play. A photo from a place you once vacationed together. These gestures might seem random, but they're not. They're emotional invitations, gentle ways of saying, "I remember. Do you?" It's their way of asking, period. Is that door still open between us? But perhaps one of the most telling signs is when they start asking other people about you. Quietly, indirectly. Your kids may not be ready to open the conversation with you directly, but they still want to know how you're doing. Maybe they ask your sister how you've been feeling. Maybe they tell a friend, "I've been thinking about calling Mom, but I'm not sure if she's mad." These are signs of hesitation wrapped in love. The desire to reconnect is there. They're just not sure how to make the first move. And here's where something powerful happens. When you recognize these signs and respond, not with pressure, but with kindness, you give your children the greatest gift. You give them permission to be vulnerable, to put the pride down, to return, not out of guilt, but out of love. You might pick up the phone and call just to say, "I saw that old photo you commented on, made me smile. How are you?" Or write a short note in the mail, something simple like, "Period. Thinking of you. Hope all's well." No grand speech. No heavy conversation. Just a small, steady light reminding them you're here. You've always been here. And you're still reaching. Because here's the thing. You don't lose your place in your child's heart just because they grow up. The love doesn't go away. It just shifts shape. Sometimes it hides under layers of life stress, old misunderstandings, or time apart. But it's there. Still breathing. Still waiting. And if you're the one to take the first step, that doesn't mean you're weak or that you're giving in. It means you're strong enough to lead with love. It means you've lived long enough to know that holding back never brings people closer, but letting go of pride just might. You'd be amazed at what happens when you open a window instead of waiting for someone to knock on the door. Let's keep going. There's more to notice, more to feel, and more to understand. Because sometimes the quietest moments are where the deepest connections begin. Have you ever looked at a photo and felt time fold in on itself? Maybe it's one from when your son was just a little boy, standing next to you in the yard with a crooked grin and grass-stained jeans. Or your daughter, maybe 5 years old, holding your hand as you walked her to school. Moments like those don't vanish. They just sit quietly in our memory, waiting to be revisited. And sometimes, without saying a word, your kids are doing the exact same thing. Reaching back gently, hoping you'll take their hand again. You might notice that when you do talk, even briefly, there's a softness in their voice that wasn't always there. Maybe they're slower to hang up. Maybe they mention that they miss your cooking or how quiet the holidays felt last year. These aren't just casual remarks. They're signals. They're whispers beneath the words saying, "I want to feel close again." But here's the thing. Many times your kids don't know how to say it directly. They don't want to burden you. Or maybe they're afraid they've drifted too far. Maybe they think you're upset, or that you've stopped needing them the way they once needed you. And so instead of reaching out in obvious ways, they circle around it. They leave the door open just enough for you to see a light on inside. The question is, do you knock? Sometimes it shows up in something as simple as how quickly they respond when you do reach out. You send a message or leave a voicemail, and suddenly they reply faster than usual. That's not random. That's readiness. That's them waiting for a moment to reconnect, but not knowing how to begin it themselves. Your words gave them an opening. You might even find that they're asking more questions than usual about your health, your hobbies, your routine. At first glance, it might seem like small talk. But if you listen closely, it's more than that. It's curiosity blooming again. It's your child trying to build a bridge, plank by plank. And often, those bridges begin with simple things. A recipe you once shared, a story they ask you to retell, a question about your childhood. These are not just ways to pass the time. They're ways to feel close. There are times when your kids will reach out not with words, but with presence. They start showing up at family gatherings a little earlier. They linger after dinner a little longer. They offer to help with errands or suggest stopping by on the weekend. And maybe you wonder, why now? The truth? Because they miss you, but don't quite know how to say it. And even if you haven't seen these signs yet, I want to remind you of something important. Just because your children haven't spoken doesn't mean they've stopped feeling. Emotions don't need volume to be real. And love doesn't disappear in silence. It waits. Sometimes it waits quietly, patiently, hopefully. Think back to when they were younger. When they scraped a knee or had a bad day, They didn't always tell you exactly what was wrong. Sometimes they just climbed into your lap or sat next to you in the car without saying a word. You didn't need an explanation. You just knew. You were there. Well, now the roles have shifted, but the emotions haven't. Sometimes your kids don't need advice. They don't even need a long conversation. They just need to feel your presence. A card in the mail, a quick thinking of you call, a shared photo, a joke, a memory. These are modern-day hugs, small gestures that carry big warmth. You might notice that when they do reach out, it's often in the middle of ordinary moments. Not birthdays or holidays, but quiet afternoons or late evenings. That's when the heart gets a little softer, when the defenses drop, when they allow themselves to remember that being close to you used to feel like home. And if you've been holding back because you're afraid of being a burden, let me offer you this. To your children, your voice is not a burden, it's an anchor. Your presence is not an interruption, it's a comfort. Even if they don't always show it the way you wish they would, the truth is, your love still matters more than you know. Sometimes all it takes is one simple gesture to break the ice. A short message that says, period. I was thinking about you today. An old photo sent in a text with a little heart emoji. A voicemail just saying, I heard this song and it made me smile. Thought of you. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to say all the right words. You just have to show up. And that showing up, even in the smallest way, can open the door to so much more. Because the truth is, your kids may not always say they need you. But many times they're waiting for you. Not because you owe them anything, but because, whether they admit it or not, the connection between a parent and child is one of life's most unshakable threads. It may stretch, it may fray, but it rarely breaks. And you, dear viewer, have the wisdom to see through the silence, the strength to lead with love, and the heart to keep that connection alive, not with grand gestures, but with quiet grace. Let's keep going. Have you ever felt that strange pull in your chest, the one that tells you someone's thinking about you, even if they haven't said a word? Maybe it comes when you're out for a walk, and a certain tree reminds you of family hikes. Or when you catch the scent of a dish your daughter used to request on her birthday. It's soft, almost invisible, but it's there. And often that feeling is mutual. That same quiet tug, your kids feel it too. One of the clearest signs they're still waiting for you is when they haven't truly moved on emotionally. You notice it not through what they say, but through what they don't. There's no new partner they've introduced. No dramatic new chapter. Just this sense that something's still unresolved. When people are really done, they often find closure. But when there's a pause instead of an ending, when life keeps going but something feels incomplete, that's not moving on. That's waiting. You might notice that your children are still connected to your world, even from afar. Maybe they haven't called lately, but they're still commenting on your niece's baby pictures. They still show up at family gatherings, even if they're a little quiet at the table. Or they keep those photos of you on their shelves, visible, unchanged, undisturbed. That's not forgetting. That's remembering. And sometimes, it's remembering with hope. There's also a certain kind of performance people do when they're trying to prove they're okay, but deep down, they're not. You might see your child posting about how free or independent they feel, sharing photos of a full life. And you wonder, why does it all feel so loud? Because sometimes the noise is there to mask the ache. When someone's really at peace, they don't need to announce it. But when they're still hurting, or still hoping, they often speak the loudest, hoping you'll hear them without needing to say a word. But here's where your strength matters most. Not to call them out, not to challenge them, but to be the calm in their storm. You've lived long enough to know the difference between appearance and truth. And your presence, your gentle, grounded presence, can be the very thing that helps them put down the performance and just be real again. There's a beautiful kind of power in restraint, in noticing the signs and choosing not to rush in with fear or fix-it energy, but to remain steady, warm, and available. When your child posts an old photo from the past or plays a song they know you loved, it's not just for nostalgia. It's a test balloon. A question floated into the air. Are you still there? And your quiet acknowledgement, a kind comment, a shared smile, a gentle call, can say more than 100 words ever could. Sometimes your kids are waiting not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to begin again. Maybe there were hard words exchanged. Maybe life got busy. Maybe they feel ashamed for the distance, or they don't know if you've forgiven them. But here's what I want you to know. As the parent, you don't have to chase. You just have to invite. And sometimes that invitation is as simple as not flinching when they appear again. You don't have to dive into the past. You don't have to explain or unpack everything. You just have to be available, emotionally and mentally. You just have to stay open, not naive, not vulnerable in the wrong ways, but open in your heart to the idea that relationships don't expire just because they get dusty. They just need a little light, a little love, and a little time. And if you're sitting here wondering, is it really up to me to make the first move? I want to gently remind you, reaching out doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise. It means you've lived enough life to know that pride doesn't heal families, that silence doesn't soothe the soul, that time waits for no one, but love can still wait for you. You're not chasing after the past. You're not trying to fix what can't be fixed. You're simply offering your presence as a gift. A gift your kids might be too proud, too afraid, or too unsure to ask for, but still deeply need. So send that message. Leave that voicemail. Comment on that photo. Forward that memory. Not with expectations, but with openness. Not because you have to, but because you still can. And in doing so, you give your children something they may not even know how to ask for: permission to come home. Not just to your house, but to your heart. You've carried them through more than they remember. You've watched them grow, struggle, and shine. And even if they don't say it enough, or at all, your love still matters. It still anchors them, even in the distance. So here's my gentle encouragement to you. Trust the signs. Trust your heart. And don't let silence fool you. Because sometimes behind the quietest moments, your kids are calling out. Not with words, but with longing, waiting, hoping. And you? You still have the power to answer. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experience in the comments, whether you've noticed these signs, taken that step, or simply needed a reminder today. And if you're walking this journey with quiet strength and deep love, just type "still reaching" in the comments. Let others know they're not alone. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel, Strong Elderly Life, where we talk about the things that truly matter: connection, purpose, and living with grace at any age. Here's to healing what still aches, to loving what still lives, and to reaching out while we still have the chance. Stay grounded, stay kind, and as always, stay strong.